So I'm getting things back together, and I've come across another snafu. I'm just going to go through it and show you what it is. Now, what we have here, this is the second spark plug that someone has installed. They took off the decompression valve and they installed this second spark plug. And this is the stock location for an original spark plug. Now, we have a couple of problems here. If we look at this spark plug, where it seats on the head, this area, this part of the head, is actually built up. And there's more meat, and it's actually higher than this part. On the original spark plug, it actually seats lower. Okay? And the reason for that, this built up area, is the decompression valve, or chamber. This is where the decompression valve sits, and it sits a little higher in the head, or it needs more meat. And I'm just going to pause and come back to that, and I'll show you and explain why. Okay, before we go any further, I just wanted to point one thing out. Now, this is the second spark plug in the decompression hole, and we can see that when it's tightened down on its seat, there's only a small gap between where the hex on the spark plug would meet the face of the head. And the hole is such a tight clearance that those hexes cannot fit into the hole. So we're just going to look at that a little closer in a minute. Okay, so I've taken out the second spark plug, and I've put it side by side with the decompression valve. Now, the first thing we see, this is the sealing face, where both the decompression valve and the spark plug will seat in the head. Okay? The first thing we notice is that the spark plug is quite a bit longer. The threads on the spark plug are quite a bit longer than the threads on the decompression valve. You have to remember, this hole is not a spark plug hole. It's a decompression chamber. Although the threads are the same, a spark plug is longer, and as a result, the nose of the spark plug would actually be protruding into the firing chamber, and it might even contact the head or the piston. Now, the second thing we notice, this is the seating surface for the top, where on the head that the decompression chamber sits. And if we look here, we can see that if you were to tighten that spark plug into the decompression hole, the hexes on the spark plug will not fit. They would, long before this seat could ever reach these hexes, would interfere with the hole. So what they have done when they bastardized this engine and installed the dual fire spark plugs, they actually installed an insert in the decompression chamber in order to raise the seat so that the spark plug would fit. And you can see at the back here, this is the port for the decompression chamber. It leads directly into the exhaust side of the head. And it's hard to see on the camera, but if you look with the naked eye, you can definitely see that this is a dissimilar piece of metal that has been either pressed or threaded in. It is not cast, it is an insert. Okay, now I'm just going to pause and show you what happens. So I've reinstalled, I have put the 2 copper sealing rings on the decompression valve for demonstration. And this area between this lower seat, this is where it makes contact with the head, and this upper seat, this is where it makes contact with the top of the head. This area in here is the decompression chamber. The spark plug sealing has been raised to about this point to accommodate the hex. Okay, so what actually happens is if we tighten the decompression valve down, it doesn't fit. Let me show you. Okay, so I now have the decompression valve threaded in to where the bottom seat makes contact with where they had the spark plug making contact. And you can see 2 things. Number 1, there is a gap where the valve, the sealing part of the valve hasn't even begun to enter the hole. And the other thing, I put the copper washer up there just to demonstrate that there's still another almost 10 millimeters of gap before the face would even make contact with the sealing ring, let alone compress it. Okay, so what's my solution? I have to get that insert out of the head. And the only way I can find to do it, I'm going to have to take the head off and take it into a machine shop. So I thought I might be riding this weekend, but it looks like another week. Oh well, life goes on. Nobody died.